Hey everyone, this is Mrs. Travis. I'm doing this video to show you guys how to solve problem 17 in last week's assignments. So problem 17 from section 8.1, chapter 8, section 1. So this problem is asking you to find the circumference of two circles, one circle inside of another circle, okay? First of all, let's talk about what circumference is. So the definition of circumference is the distance around a circle, okay? If we're thinking about the distance around something, it is basically the same as the perimeter. So circumference, when you see circumference, think perimeter. Just write this really quickly. All right, so now we've talked about that and kind of defined what circumference really is, let's look at the formulas for finding circumference. When you're trying to find the circumference of a circle, the perimeter of a circle, there are basically two different formulas that you can use, okay? The first one is C for circumference, capital C, equals diameter, and diameter is represented with the lowercase d, times pi. Pi is that special ratio, and it's 3.14. The other formula uses the radius. It is C for circumference, capital C, equals 2 times pi times r. Lowercase r in mathematics usually means radius, okay? So you can use the formula that involves the diameter or the formula that involves the radius. You could also find out what the diameter is if given the radius, or find out what the radius is if given the diameter, if you'd like to do that too. But I'm just going to illustrate the two different formulas and use the dimension they give us in the problem, okay? So in this problem, let's go ahead and look at the orange circle first. And I'll write orange here for the orange circle. With the orange circle, not thinking about the blue shaded portion yet, the dimension they give us is this line that goes halfway through that little orange circle. So that line right there, because it goes halfway through, is the radius. So because they're giving us the radius, and I'll label it R, I'm going to use the second formula that I listed, the formula that involves the radius. So I'm going to erase the formula that involves the diameter because I don't need that. I'm just going to use the one that involves the radius. So rewriting my formula, it's going to equal C, whoops, let's get my color here. C equals 2 times pi times r, radius. I'm going to use substitution, okay? So they tell us that the radius is 5 centimeters. So I'm going to erase radius in my formula. If it will erase, it won't erase for me. There we go. And then I'm going to put the dimension they give us for radius in its place. And I'm going to use parentheses when using substitution. Trying to get my pen to let me write. So the radius is 5. So next I'm going to replace my symbol pi for what pi represents. Pi represents the ratio 3.14. So I'm going to put my 3.14. in its place with parentheses. The only other thing to do is to do what the parentheses tell us to do in mathematics, which is to multiply. So I'm going to take 2 times 3.14 times 5. So that's equals 31 4/10. The units of measure will be centimeters. So this is the circumference of the orange circle, the little circle in the center or inside of the blue circle. So the next thing to do is to find the circumference of the larger circle, the blue circle. So in finding the circumference of the blue circle, we need to figure out what the radius of that circle is or the diameter of that circle. I'm going to go ahead and write blue just below so we're all clear on which circle we're finding the circumference for. So we do not have the diameter, but if you look really closely at this figure, we do have the radius, okay, of that larger circle. The radius of it is the radius of the orange circle plus the dimension here shaded in the blue shaded area. Okay, it's hard for me to describe. I'll do my best though. So I'll highlight this in pink. So this length here, the distance through the blue shaded area, that distance there, plus the distance from the edge of the orange shaded circle to its center, that is the radius of the blue larger circle. So this here is the radius of the blue circle. So that radius equals 5 plus 5, which is 10 centimeters. And we can now use that information to figure out the circumference or the perimeter of that larger blue circle. And the 2 5s, it's this right here, that equals 5 centimeters. And I can kind of scratch that out for now. All right. So circumference equals 2 times pi times r. We're using this formula for circumference because we know the radius. So using substitution like we did before, I'm going to erase my r for radius and put the number, the length of the radius, in its place. Using parentheses, you always want to use parentheses when you're substituting. It's going to be, oh, not 5. Sorry, that was the last circle. It's going to be 10 for the larger circle. And we'll put the units of measure in when we're done. Next, we're going to replace the symbol for pi with what pi actually represents. That's 3.14. Surrounding 3.14 with parentheses, we're going to go ahead and substitute that for pi. All right, so now we have the numbers we need for our to build our equation from our formula. Now the only thing we need to do is do what the parentheses tell us to do, which is to multiply the 3 numbers together. We have 2 times 3.14 times 10 this time. And we end up with 62 8/10. That is the full circumference of the blue circle, or the distance around the outer edge of the blue circle. The units of measure are centimeters, because that's the units of measure they give us when they give us the dimension, the radius. All right, so that's how you solve problem number 17. If you have more questions, please don't hesitate to email me.